Treehouse of Horror 30 is a pretty special episode of The Simpsons because this is the 666th episode, which is pretty fabulous for a Treehouse of Horror. It's also the 4th episode of the 31st season of The Simpsons. It's directed by Timothy Bailey, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this. The third story was a bit weak for me, but the opening and the first two segments I loved, and I'm really relieved because the last few Treehouse of Horrors have not been the best, but this one I thought worked really, really well. So as always, I will go through the segments, share some thoughts on things that I liked, things that I maybe didn't like. So there will be spoilers from this point on. And the opening, I adored. It's a parody of the Omen. Also never realised that Omen backwards is Nemo, so thanks to The Simpsons for pointing that out. And Maggie is, well, Damien. And I loved how that played out, and I kind of wish it had been a full segment. I would have loved that to have been the main feature, and maybe the third feature should have been the opening, and this would have been a pretty perfect episode. But nevertheless, I really thoroughly enjoyed what we got of it. Definitely had a lot of fun with that. The next one, or the first segment, is Danger Things, which is a parody of Stranger Things, and I really enjoyed it, both in terms of the narrative, the characters, the 80s vibe that we had, and also the animation when we were in the Upside Down, or the over-under, as they called it, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. What I will say is that if you don't understand the parody, if you've never seen Stranger Things, it's probably not very good. And yes, that is often the case with a lot of Treehouse of Horror parodies, but a lot of them, even if I haven't seen the source material, I can still enjoy it. But this one, I feel like it would definitely depend on at least having seen Stranger Things, or at least generally having a basic understanding of, what things are referring to. For example, with, well, as I said, spoilers, so this is fine, but Lisa shaves her head accidentally, but obviously we're parodying 11 there. But if you didn't know that, what would be the relevance of her shaving her head? So there are things that, out of context, are probably just a little bit flat. But if you have seen Stranger Things, then I think you'll really enjoy it. I certainly had a lot of fun with it. Then we have Heaven Swipes Right, which is a parody of Heaven Can Wait. And actually, just to, flip what I've just said on its head, I haven't seen Heaven Can Wait. It's on my list. It's absolutely on my list. But I could still fully enjoy everything about this. So this is one of the segments where, in my opinion, you don't need to have seen the source material to understand what was going on, because I had a lot of fun with it. The premise is pretty straightforward. Homer dies, it's not meant to be his time, so he gets to go back to Earth in the body of different people who are about to die, and I thought it worked quite well. The only thing I didn't like, and I don't know if this is because of the way it's done in Heaven Can Wait, or if it's just a decision they made for this, but sometimes Homer would look like Homer, and sometimes he'd look like the person whose body he went into. And I didn't really understand why sometimes he would look like himself and sometimes not. So that, for me, I thought was a little bit of a bad choice. Again, if that reflects Heaven Can Wait, then fair enough. But for me, I thought that was a bit bizarre. But otherwise, really enjoyed it. The last one, I didn't really like, but at the same time, I'm not that big of a fan of The Shape of Water. When I watched it, I enjoyed it, but it's not one of those films that's made a lasting impression on me. I'm not desperate to watch it again. So for me, while I enjoyed it and I loved Del Toro, I actually feel like watching it once was enough, and I wasn't that bothered about seeing a parody of it. What I did like, though, is that it focuses on Selma, and we also have Patty, of course, and Kang, and a relationship between Kang and Selma, and yeah, it's fine. I won't say any more than that. It's absolutely fine. But as I said, I'm not that bothered about The Shape of Water. It's not left a strong, lasting impression on me, even though, as I said, when I watched it, really enjoyed it. But it's not something I've thought about that much, so I wasn't that bothered about seeing a parody. But it was okay. It was very clear what it was parodying, and I think it worked quite well. I didn't dislike it. I just wouldn't say I enjoyed it. So 2 out of 3 segments are really good. The opening is brilliant. The third segment is fine if that's something you'd like to see parodied. Could you watch the third segment without the source material? Yes. I think you could definitely enjoy the third segment without having seen The Shape of Water. I think it's pretty clear, well, relatively clear to see what will be going on. But having said that, I didn't really enjoy it, and I've seen the source material, so who knows. Either way, though, this is a pretty brilliant 666th episode. Treehouse of Horror XXX is generally pretty delightful, and it's restored my faith in Treehouse of Horror because, as I said, the last few have not been that good. But this one, all things considered, pretty great.